the dry and torrid climate of central western Brazil, an old road extends across a vast area of Cerrado without fulfilling its purpose, completely abandoned. At one point, however, it passes over a dry river via a bridge. On one of the banks of that riverbed that formerly carried crystal clear waters, next to the side wall of the bridge, there is a humble hut, the rear area and part of the side of which are surrounded by some trees, which partially hide it. Mrs. Maria Pia is standing in front of the hut, with her hands resting on a construction made of some slats, which was once a fence. As no one has passed through that region for many years, the fence lost its reason for existing and was therefore never restored. The peasant woman looks at the house on the other bank of the dry river, at a certain height on the land, with a very uneasy expression. As a sign of great displeasure for something, her fleshy mouth is twisted over her plump cheeks, and the suspicious lady's brow is also twitching. At the same time as she adjusts a hair elastic printed with several colored stripes that Mrs. Maria Pia uses to tie her hair behind her hand, the matron looks with great suspicion at that house, apparently stood still in time and which, until 2 days ago, was completely abandoned. Mrs. Maria Pia's own posture betrays her great disturbance with something strange in that place. From her position about 70 meters away, the old woman has a view of the entire side of the house, which faces the old road. The asphalt is bumpy, full of gaps, with huge deep ruts and eroded by rainwater that occurred there for decades on end. Mrs. Maria Pia's suspicious gaze covers that road and the bridge over the dry river bed, whose side wall, about 5 meters high, is right next to her hut. The housewife doesn't see any movement in that house at this moment, unlike the strange events she has witnessed in that environment recently, which is the reason of her concerns. While Mrs. Maria Pia reflects on the reasons of her uneasiness about the house of the road, a lizard snakes close to her. With that agile step, characteristic of reptiles, a little suspicious, stopping at very interval of about 10 steps and remaining motionless, until it gets up the courage to move forward a few more centimeters. It's a calango that's a little different from the common one, as it has 2 tails. One of them is missing the tip, probably ripped off by an animal in a failed attempt to devour the lizard, given the courage of this creeping creature, which allowed it to evade the attack and refused to be used as food. The proverbial genetic capacity of regeneration of reptiles was quite competent in its case, and instead of recovering only the missing part, it produced an entire tail alongside the first, without worrying about sinning by excess. The quick and agile gait of the calango, always interrupted by abrupt pauses, normally takes place on the very old and worn wooden floor of Mrs. Maria Pia's humble hut, whose walls, baseboards and corners have infinite holes where the reptile lives. However, at the moment, what it wants is to get away from there, because the housewife's husband, Mr. Josenildo, an old woodcutter, is chopping some branches to use in his wood stove, and the X-blouse produces vibrations in the ground that greatly bother the 2-tailed lizard. For this reason, it throws itself into the dry riverbed. Totally oblivious to Mrs. Maria Pia's mysterious reason for distress, the 2-tailed lizard climbs a tree and reaches the top of the bridge, where it heads towards the abandoned house, the object of the shack owner's concern. The paving of the bridge and the entire road is so poorly maintained that even dirt would offer better traffic conditions. It's a forgotten road, dusty and overgrown with weeds, on which that house is the only building along its 12-kilometer stretch in the middle of the dry cerrado of that region. However, there's no obstacle that will make the calango stop its march towards the house on the road, because in addition to getting away from the unpleasant effects of Mr. Josenildo's X-blouse, the scaly animal has another reason to reach this destination. It knows that it will find in the house on the other bank something he really likes. Nothing that could worry Mrs. Maria Pia interests the two-tailed lizard. The crawling creature goes straight to the back area of the house, which is surrounded only by a long masonry wall, only interrupted by a space where there once was a wooden gate, judging by the rusty hinges on one side of the opening. In that backyard, the brave Calango arrives at a shed, whose closed door is completely worn out at its lower end, which offers a huge opening through which the reptile enters that environment, where a large volume on the floor takes up almost the entire space, packed in a big bag the size of a person. The lizard approaches it and climps up the part that offers the most ease, the immobile hand of an arm that comes out through a tear in the sack, revealing its morbid content. The creeping creature finds it a little strange to walk on a cold human skin, as if it were the epidermis of another reptile. But it pays no attention to this and continues to walk along the corpse's bare arm, until it passes to the surface of the back at shoulder height, where its torn part tightens the body. Now it's inches away from what it's looking for, a handful of burr stuck to the outside of the casing. The two-tailed lizard loves burr, a plant that doesn't exist in the surrounding area. He had already enjoyed this delicacy of the gods the day before, and decided to return for another meal of such appreciated food, present in large quantities in the bag that hides that person. A few minutes later, already satisfied, the reptile misses its familiar environment. Inside the walls of the hut and in the countless tangled beds beneath the floor of its rustic construction, where it is always easy to find various types of insects to feed on. Upon returning to the living room of its cozy shack, the Calango finds with joy that Mr. Josenildo has stopped chopping wood and is talking to his distressed wife. As the lizard is very happy to have enjoyed a feast of burr, it doesn't understand Mrs. Maria Pia's nervousness, who expresses all her uneasiness to her husband. "I'm very worried about those two strange men who came to the house on the road yesterday. They brought a huge bag, left it in a back shed and went out. It can't be a good thing. Imagine, it's been more than 20 years since anyone has been here, and suddenly two strangers arrive in a truck." The lizard from the hovel, which had been patiently waiting for all that movement to calm down so that it could enter the shed and help itself to its desired burr, sets off for this purpose. When it notices the approach of Mrs. Maria Pia, who shows the wide eyes and frightened expression of someone who saw and heard everything that happened there, hidden behind a tree nearby. She is pale, and the startled peasant walks over the dry leaves and twigs, taking great care not to make any noise, even though she knows that the two invaders have already left. For 2 days, since she saw the arrival of that suspicious truck for the first time, the elderly woman has been following everything that happens in that house, where by all logic, absolutely nothing should happen. Listen to that story. She realizes that the trees that surround part of her hut prevented the bandit from seeing it and thinking that there is no habitation around. With a careful step and fearful of coming into contact with criminal activities, the woman arrives at the entrance of the outbuilding. She realizes that the door is locked only with a padlock fitted to a chain that connects the jamb to a ring on the door, permitting only the opening that the length of the stretched chain allows. However, the space of just a few centimeters is enough for her to see part of the interior of the outbuilding, and the terrifying spectacle of two bags with bodies dumped on the floor. As soon as the vehicle stops, the same two criminals who came the other times get out of it, complaining. Another ham from the ridicule. The third in a week, says Zach. And this one came cut up into 5 bags. Don't complain, each one of these corpses earns good money, reminds Tonio. The forum hearing is this week, explains the first. The commendator does not want living witnesses. After having this dialogue, the two miscreants remove the 5 bags containing the parts of another corpse from the back of the truck and take them toward the backyard. When they get there, they are surprised by Josenildo, who comes out from behind of the outbuilding, pointing his revolver at them, and asks point blank, "Both of you, drop everything and raise out your arms. Where is my wife? What did you do with her?" If you liked this book trailer, give it a like and share. You can read this short story in full and 10 other short stories in the book Bodies on Brute Soil by Georg Min. It's for sale on Amazon website. Just type the author's name into the search box. You will read the first pages and can download it. Important, the ebook has no illustrations. It contains a running test designed for those who enjoy reading stories that entertain and make people think.